All right. We are here. We are live. Hey, Bones. Hey, cut the music. Cut the music. We've had enough of that. Although just kind of pretty cool rock. Anyway, we're going to get started with our show tonight. We're going to bring our guest on in just a second. Let me get rid of this ghosty in front of my face. And here I am. Get the camera set right. And here we are. We're ready to go. All right, we're going to bring on the guest, Ernie Pack, in just a minute or two. I'd just like to tell you that next week, I'm not sure who I'm going to have on my show. I don't have anybody signed up for the show. I'll either be showing a not seen before interviews, two different people, an hour each for the show. It's never been seen before, but it was recorded 2 or 3 weeks ago. Or I will have a unbeknown guest to even me. Now, in 2 weeks, I'll be having a psychic here. We'll be showing a show that she will be appearing at halftime of this show. She'll be appearing here in Arkansas in Hot Springs at one of the big hotels. I would be appearing this year there because it's not too far from me, but the wife has had back surgery a couple weeks ago, and she is unable to travel as of yet, and I do not want to leave her at home when she is not walking fully and has no capability of walking to the mailbox or barely answering the front door. So I cannot leave her alone at this time. So I cannot be appearing this year. Next year, I may well be appearing in June in Hot Springs. I will be probably sharing a table with the psychic that I will see in 2 weeks, which will be about Showtime. And we'll be talking about that show in 2 weeks. Anyway, tonight, we're going to bring in Ernie Banks. But first, let's get this show started. Bones, play the intro.
Warning, the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers and or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman featuring Bones. Catch us on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, Stream, and everywhere else you catch your podcasts. And of course, WLFE-DB.com. Now, from the backwoods of southeast Arkansas, right beside the Bayou Bartholomew, the longest bayou on the planet, broadcasting from downtown metropolitan Cane Creek Township, here is your host, Len Dorman.
And hello, and to my friend, Ernie Pack. I should say
Hello.
New friend. We've never really spoken a whole lot before
really.
you agreed to be on the show.
Chatted a little bit.
Not a whole lot, but we got to know we're kind of where each other's coming from.
Yep.
You've got a lot of knowledge that I do not have. I think I was honest with you when I talked before. I have never been to Waverly Hills, and I probably never will be because of the expense. It's not that bad if you got a group of 10 people, but when you're a paranormal group of 1, that's an expensive investigation, and you know better than I do. It's not worth it for one person to go in there and investigate.
Well, we've had guests that come by themselves. They'll pay the $1,000 and try to make it through the whole night by themselves. The one person that I know of that's done that for years, as far as I know, she's never made it all the way through the night. She will stop right there by the door and watch her watch till she's made it 1 minute longer than her previous trip, and then she's out. But,
I will say one thing. I will say one thing about my longevity. You've heard of Bachelor's Grove Cemetery?
Yes.
It's one of the most haunted. It's only 1 acre haunted cemeteries in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I am one person. My wife dropped me off there 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She picked me up at 8 o'clock the next morning. I had no cell phone. I had no transportation out of there. And home was a 45-minute drive away and probably a 3-day walk for me.
Right.
So I had nowhere to go. Basically, I would just had to have stood in front of the highway and wait for a state patrol officer to come by and pick me up.
That's my kind of people there. I could get into that.
I did one of the Spanish conquistadors thing. I basically got dropped off, and my ride left. I didn't know where to go home, so I had to fight.
Yeah. There was no flight to it. It was just in the fight or flight. There was no flight available.
There was no flight.
Yeah.
So I would what I'd do is just do the same thing. I'd probably caught a cab there and just got dropped off, and I wouldn't have any choice unless you come and got me. I'd be there.
I get it.
But let's talk about what's gone on in the past. How did you get involved with Waverly Hills?
Well, I grew up in this neighborhood. Never really lived much further than a bike's ride from the building.
Really?
And when I was a teenager, it was just a big abandoned hospital up on top of the hill. I'd had a great grandfather that had, I believe it was glaucoma surgery there, or cataract surgery, maybe something to do with his eyes. Back many, many years ago, when they had clinics, they used to have various clinics in the building after it closed as a tuberculosis hospital. Then it was a Woodhaven Geriatric Center, and there were several different clinics in there. Anyway, my great grandfather had surgery there many, many years ago, and I never knew anything about the place. It was a place that you couldn't even see it from around here because it sits up on top of a hill surrounded by trees. You'd always hear about it, but never could see it. Didn't know much about it till the fall when the leaves would fall off the trees. Then you could see it. We always called it the castle on the hill because the way it's built with that, I don't know, it's the Gothic architecture, English Gothic architecture. But it always fascinated me. They closed it for good at the end of 1980. I think the last employees left early 81. And it sat abandoned. It went through several owners during that time over the next 20 years. But during that next 20 years, it became a place that every teenager in town had to sneak into. And I was one of those teenagers in town that sneaked into Waverly Hills. And we did everything in there. We'd race wheelchairs in the hallway. We actually played basketball up on the 5th floor in the children's ward on the 5th floor. We had a low goal set up at each end of the children's ward on the 5th floor, and we played basketball up there. But we had some experiences back then that I can't explain other than to say they were paranormal experiences. And the place just kept drawing me back. And in 2001, Tina and Charlie Mattingly bought it, and they cleaned it up. They put out, there was I want to say it was in the newspaper or something. I know I had heard through the grapevine or somehow that they were taking volunteers to come up there and help clean up the building. Because in that 20 years that it sat abandoned, it got vandalized, it got trashed. It started falling into major disrepair. And so I went up there to help clean it up back in 2001 when he first bought it. Charlie first bought it. And I was fascinated with the place. I hadn't been there since I was a teenager. It'd been probably 10, 15 years since I'd been in there. And all the equipment that used to be there when I was a kid or a teenager was gone. All the beds, the wheelchairs, for the most part, had all been auctioned off or sold off or stolen or destroyed. So I just found myself kind of wandering the halls looking at it, and I couldn't believe how it had changed since I'd been going there as a kid. And this guy comes around the corner and he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just looking around." He said, "That's not what you're here for." He said, "We get this place cleaned up. We'll start doing tours. You can come back and take a tour if you just want to look around. But if you're here to help, we could use your help." I said, "Okay." And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, so I just left. And what I now know, that guy was Charlie Mattingly, the guy that owns it, who now happens to be one of my best friends on the planet. I mean, I talk to him 4 or 5 times a day. But, he had kind of rubbed me the wrong way at that time, and I left. But they got it cleaned up. They started doing tours, started doing investigations. I started going up there taking tours. I went on a couple of investigations. And every time I would go up there, I would ask Tina, because she was kind of the face of the place. If you've ever seen any of the TV shows with Waverly, she's the redheaded lady that's always on there welcoming everyone into the building. And I would ask her, I would say, "Do you need any help? I mean, is there anything I could do? I'd love to be a guide here. I'd love to do this. I'd love to do that." And she's like, "Oh, we don't need anything. Thanks." She always kind of brushed me off and I'd just leave. Well, one time I asked her that question and she said, "Well, we could use some actors for the haunted house. If you want to come back when we start the haunt up, we could use some actors in the haunted house." I'm like, "Sure, I'm in." So that was my first experience at working at Waverly, was acting in the haunted house. And I just kind of never left. I hung out, and next thing I know, I'm hosting the private overnights up there. I'm helping guide tours. I'm doing a little bit of everything at Waverly. And did that off and on from about 2009 until early 2020. And I quit. I had some disagreements with Tina over some different things that were going on that has nothing to do with what's going on now. And I quit. And last year, I was contacted by the person who's now the executive director of the Historical Society and asked if I would like to come back and host the overnights again. And I jumped on it. And I brought a large crowd of people with me to help with tours and investigations up there. And we had an awesome time. We were having a great year. But as time went on, we started asking questions about why Tina and Charlie weren't there. We had been told some things that were, at first it was easy for me to accept what they had told me because I had left kind of on bad terms when I left.
Right.
So when they were telling me all these bad things about Tina and Charlie, I was like, okay, I can see that. I'll play the game. I'm with you. Yeah. And so I was 100% team WHHS at that time. And even applied for or sent an email to the president of the Historical Society applying for executive director job. Was told at that time that they're looking for someone with experience at running a nonprofit, someone with experience as a building manager and things like that, which I understood. That makes perfect sense. So anyway, we started asking questions about what was going on with the lawsuit. And this person who's now the executive director started coming down on us and telling us how to run our investigations. And it was nothing to go show up for work and have him say things like, "I need Ernie's people down in the atrium now." And we go down there and the first words out of his mouth would be, "What the F is going on?" And we're like, "What do you mean?" And he'd have some kind of outlandish story about how we were doing something to piss off the guests. I guess. And no one ever came to us with any problems, right? It was bogus. It was nonsense. He was just trying to, because we were not following in lockstep with their takeover of the building, basically, which we'll get into more of that later, I'm sure. Then he started, making it harder on us to do our jobs. And finally, we all quit. We all walked away.
So this was not real complaints. It was politics.
Yeah, it was politics.
That sucks. Personal opinion. That sucks.
It does. I mean, anyone who knows anything about my personal story, my wife, Denise, I met my wife, Denise, at Waverly Hills when I was hosting her on a private overnight. Both of us have these 502 tattoos. That's for room 502 at Waverly Hills. Probably the most famous room at Waverly Hills. The spirit that room is known for kind of brought us together. It's a long story. Be happy to tell it if you want me to, but
we
anyway.
have. I'm talking about time. We have the show normally runs 2 hours.
Okay.
About halfway through, I'll run a commercial break for about 30, 40 seconds. Other than that, we've got till 12. And on my network, WLFE DB, there is not another show coming on. Obviously, it's 12 o'clock here, as 1 o'clock in the morning in New York, where the network is based. There are no shows on after mine.
Okay.
So if you want to go to overtime, we can, and we will.
I've got to be on a very big radio program tomorrow morning at 10:30, and it'll be 1 a.m. when we get done if we go at regular time.
Right.
So I'll see how I'm feeling at that time. But,
okay.
See what I've got. See if I've gotten everything off my chest at that time.
So that I'll just laying that out. If you want to go overtime, we will. That's all up to you. But continue with the story because we have the time.
Okay.
So please continue.
All right. But Waverly Hills means the world to me. I love the place. The building. There's a video that's out there on YouTube. I've shared it in our Save Waverly Hills Facebook group that you can probably go find it, where they're interviewing Tina and Charlie, the owners of the property. And Tina makes a statement in there that says that the building has a way of calling out to who she wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that building calls to me all the time. I have since I was a teenager, sneaking in there. And still to this day, it calls to me. Now, I've received a letter from the Waverly Hills Historical Society saying that I'm banned from the property. The owners of the property don't say that, but the people who lease the building say that I'm banned from the property because I've gone on podcasts just like yours and spoken out about the truth about what's really going on with Waverly Hills. And I walked away from Waverly Hills willingly because I saw what was going on. And the building means the world to me, like I said. So for me to walk away, my wife to walk away, Todd, Leanne, Eskew, there were 13 of us that walked away the same day. Well, not all of us left that very day. There were a few that didn't hear about it until a little bit later, and they kind of went away soon. And then others that we said, go ahead and stay if you want. We won't hold it against you. We won't feel betrayed if you do. If the people up on the hill found out that those people were friends of ours, they fired them.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're petty and, but they're going to get what's coming to them very soon. And Tina and Charlie will be back in charge, and I'll be back up there hosting overnights again.
Okay. So Tina, let me get this straight now. Tina and Charlie own the building and the property, correct?
Yes.
And the local historical society leases it from them.
It's not a local historical society. It's the Waverly
Okay.
Hills Historical Society that Tina and Charlie created to run the business of the building. Tina and
Right.
Charlie were not business people. When they got
Okay.
this place and they started doing the tours and the investigations, they decided that it'd be best to run it as a nonprofit, but they didn't know how to deal with all that, tax issues and everything. So they created a historical society, appointed members of the board that they thought they could trust to run the business of the building. They leased the building to this historical society to do the tours and investigations so that all the funds went into the historical society. And then Tina and Charlie dispersed them to restore and maintain the building.
Okay.
And that worked out fine for almost 20 years until through attrition and just people leaving the board or for whatever reason, the board became dominated by this core group that centers around basically Renee Clark, who's now the president of the Historical Society. She would put, every time an opening came up, the position would be filled by a friend of hers. Someone she had worked with, someone her husband had worked with, someone that was a friend of theirs. This core clique of friends then became the board. They saw that the building brings in well over $1 million a year, probably well over $2 million a year, sometimes $3 million.
Wow.
Charlie and Tina never accepted government grant money, taxpayer dollars, for restoration of the building. But the building's eligible for up to like $20 million in taxpayer dollars in grant money because it's on the National Registry of Historic Places and, because of the size of it and everything and its significance.
But none of this money's been spent, or has it?
They've never accepted that. Okay.
Oh, they've been.
As
You don't
the
turn
owner,
down grant
they
money.
didn't want that. What's that?
Yeah. Most people will not turn down grant money at all.
Well, what happens if you accept grant money, then the government tells you how to spend it,
Right.
and how
True.
to restore the building. They wanted to do what they wanted with their property because, they didn't buy it as a historic property. They bought it as an investment for their future.
Right.
So that's how they, wound up in this situation. Well, this core clique sees they want that $20 million in grant money. All of a sudden, Tina got sick back at the end of 2019. She got really sick and was hospitalized for well over a month. Charlie's health started failing. Tina was the executive director of the Historical Society. Well, the board members decide to fire Tina as executive director. And Tina and Charlie lived in an apartment inside the building that Charlie had built, that they had lived in for many, many years. They were sent a letter by the attorneys for the Historical Society saying that they had to be off that property down to the hour of when they had to be off that property in the building that they own. Okay?
They were kicked out of their own property.
Kicked out of their home during COVID, with both of them with failing health. They owned another home, but that home was in disrepair. It had a pipe bust on the second floor, and it had, destroyed most of the house.
Of course.
And that house was unlivable at the time, and they were told to get out. They didn't have anywhere to go. So Charlie asked him, he said, can I just get this other house in a place where I can move her and then we'll go? He thought if he could get her out, then he could work with the board, get everything settled, whatever, issue they had, whatever was going on, he could work it out. Once he got her away, she was in bad health anyway. Wasn't a good idea to hurt her up there with the stress of what was going on. He thought, okay, I'll get her out. We'll get this house livable. We'll move there. I'll work it out with the Historical Society. They do that. Boom, he's handed a lawsuit that I don't have it handy, but the lawsuit was about this thick.
Oh, good grief.
Claiming all kinds of shoddy workmanship and just a bunch of nonsense. I mean, a lot of things, like the building is not being restored to historical standards and all this, which it didn't have to be because it was his building. And he had never taken any grant money that required him to restore it to any certain standard. And if you happen to look on their page right now, they're bragging about putting in new metal doors on the front of the building that are not historically accurate, by the way. But anyway, so Charlie's like, what do I do about this? He's got this big lawsuit now. Basically, if you read through the entire lawsuit, the resolution that they're seeking is for the court to force him to sell the building and use that money to pay them their damages, or he can just sign the building over to them and they'll drop the lawsuit. Now, if you go on their page also, you'll see a video where they say, we did not force the owners out, which is a lie, and I can prove it with court documents that I've got right here in front of me, in fact. And that we are not trying to take the building from the owners, which is another lie that I can show you with court documents that are right here. Why are they right here? Because now myself and my wife, Denise, have been added to the lawsuit. When they added us to the lawsuit, it was a gift because now this is public record.
Yeah.
All their lies that they're telling the public on their little videos on their Facebook page and everything about how we did not do this, we did not do that. Well, it's right here in your lawsuit stating what time when Tina and Charlie moved out as they were required to do by the Historical Society. And it's right here in their lawsuit that their resolution is for the court to force Charlie to sell the building. I mean, anyway, I contacted Charlie a month or so after we quit Waverly. And I said, hey, man, I've heard all kinds of things about why you and Tina aren't there. We were told to tell the public if they asked that you guys had retired to spend more time with your grandkids. I know that's not the case. What really happened? Charlie said, if you got time, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about this. So we sat down and talked. He showed me his lawsuit. He showed me paperwork proving that everything I'd been told by them was a lie. And I said, well, we got to fight this.
Yeah.
He had not even hired an attorney at the time. He was, him and Tina had both been very sick. He didn't have money. You know, they weren't taking the money that was going into Waverly Hills was going into Waverly Hills. They were putting it into maintaining the building and the grounds and keeping it safe for tours and investigations. They weren't piling up this big war chest, but the Historical Society was. They filed taxes on over $4 million in assets the last time they filed taxes.
Wow.
They had hired the biggest law firm in the state of Kentucky for sure. Greenbaum, Bingham, and Dutton. They're a huge law firm here. They're a huge law firm nationally, even worldwide. And Charlie didn't even have an attorney. So myself, my wife, several others, we got together. We formed Save Waverly Hills. We put on our website on everything. Another group of people started a website called SaveWaverlyHills.com, not us. We're accused in this lawsuit of having a website called SaveWaverlyHills.com. I'm personally accused of it. I don't know how to log into the damn thing. It's not my website, but I'm accused of having it. But anyway, a website was created, Facebook page, Facebook group called Save Waverly Hills. We state in there clearly, we're raising funds for the legal defense of Charlie Mattingly in this lawsuit between him and the WHHS. And we've done fundraisers. We've gone to paranormal conferences. We're doing everything we can to keep him treading water with his attorneys. The other side just keeps stalling because they have no evidence. They have no proof of their claims. Now, I don't know about you, but if I file a lawsuit against somebody, if I am so aggrieved or harmed, damaged by someone that I'm going to go out and file a lawsuit, I want to get that thing before a judge now. No, they keep stalling. Why? Because they have no evidence. The truth is not on their side. The truth is on Charlie's side. The truth is on our side. And we're eager to get this in front of a judge. They keep stalling. They think, well, if we keep stalling, Charlie will run out of money and we win. Because if he doesn't have money to fight him in court and they've got Greenbaum, Dutton, whoever they are,
Right.
If they've got them, they win.
And they could try to force them to settle and enforce them to sell the place to pay for legal bills and to pay for the restoration of the house they're living in and walk away with, what'd you say, a $4 million building for probably less than $1 million, and then go get a $20 million federal grant, and they're rolling in the cash.
Yeah. Not to mention, Tina was the executive director. Okay. She got a salary as executive director. Charlie's on disability. That was the only money they had coming into them. Okay. Was Charlie's disability, her salary as executive director. She got fired. So now they're both living on Charlie's disability. Okay. But as executive director, Tina handled HR, media relations and PR, pretty much everything that, you can imagine as executive director at a place like that. Now, the Historical Society has created jobs for their friends and family because board members, according to the bylaws of the WHHS, board members aren't allowed to get a salary. So what they did, as a board member, they can't get a salary. But if they do another job, like head of HR, they can get paid a salary as head of HR. If they become media director, they can get a salary as that.
Right.
So now they've created positions like, director of operations.
Can hire all the people they want, give them all the position they want, give them all the titles they want, and give them a nice fat check every week.
Yeah. So the board members aren't getting paid as board members, but they're getting paid as media relations, director of operations, HR manager, all these bogus ass titles that they've given themselves and their friends and family. Oh, by the way, remember when I said I had applied for executive director and I was told that they were looking for someone that had experience with building management and experience running a nonprofit? Well, they hired an executive director back in December and gave him a $117,000 a year salary.
Whoa.
This guy, his experience is he's been a tour guide at Waverly Hills, and he was a parts guy at a car dealership. but his wife happens to be the president of the board.
Right. That was his qualification right there.
That's his qualifications. Yeah. That is the nonsense that is going on at Waverly Hills right now.
I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, people that don't know the real story, that, they go to their Facebook page or their website and they see what they put out. They put these pictures up. Look what we did to restore this door. Look what we did here. Look what we did here. They don't know the backstory of everything that they've done is something that they had to do because we reported them for not doing them right. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's for a long time they had done. I can tell you this. I was the lead for investigations up there last year under this current regime, the Clark gang. There was absolutely nothing done to that building for preservation or restoration between February of last year when I started and the end of July when I quit. Absolutely nothing, not a thing. I went on a podcast and said that. A week later, they put out this post bragging because they had installed plastic sheeting over some of the windows that had not yet been replaced. Okay, there's a few elements to that right there.
Okay.
First off, if you're doing a paranormal investigation, let's say you're doing an EVP session. You know all about that, Lynn.
All about that.
Do you think that you could sit in an abandoned building that is open air on one side and has plastic sheeting on the other with a slight breeze blowing and do an EVP session?
No, because the plastic is going to be making all kinds of racket. Even if the edges aren't flapping in the wind, you can have suction going back and forth, where it's going to be popping one way or the other constantly.
Thank you. Okay. But they did that because they wanted to show that they had done something, because I pointed out that they had done nothing. Okay. Now, another reason why Charlie had not put windows in all of the building yet was because the roof leaks and the building gets a lot of moisture in it.
Of course.
If you seal it up and you don't keep an airflow in there, mold and mildew grows.
Big time.
So Charlie kept it open. Well, they've sealed it up now. I was told by a guest who was up there on a historical tour a couple of weeks ago that there is mold and mildew in there everywhere now.
Wow.
I don't know. I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I believe it.
That just a little comment right here is, and a kind of a question. Could they have sealed it up knowing that something like black mold is going to start growing all inside the building in order to condemn the building and force the owners into a really cheap sale? Because all of a sudden they got to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the black mold out of there, or the building's condemned.
Well, what they want the building. Okay?
That'd be the cheapest way to get it. Get it condemned and buy it for whatever.
To get it. Exactly. That'd be the cheapest way for them to get it. But these people, like Rye says down there, I don't know that they're smart enough to plan like that. Because it's obvious that while we've been playing chess in this match, they've been playing checkers. I mean, everything they've done has been a reaction to something that we've done. We had a car show up there a couple of weeks ago that raised $10,000 and had 126 show cars and probably 1,000 guests, and they put out a flyer in the neighborhood here inviting people to come up for a meet and greet with the staff of Waverly Hills, and we'll give you a free hot dog and a drink. Because they wanted people to come and see them and not come and see us. You know what? I haven't seen them bragging about how many people showed up. The weather was perfect that weekend. They should have had a big crowd.
If they did, looks like they'd brag about it.
I'm sure if they'd have had a big crowd, they'd have bragged about it.
Oh, yeah, you'd have heard about it.
3 minutes from the gate, and I rode by several times. I never saw a car go through that gate all day.
Wow.
Just saying.
They may have had to eat their own hot dogs.
Yeah. I'm sure that, them, their friends and family were there supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all they got.
Man. This whole story makes me wish I was a multimillionaire. Because I'd just go up there and play Elon Musk. I'd say, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm getting everybody out and just bail out the whole group and put the real owners, in positions that I could put in, establish a new nonprofit, give them paid positions, and give somebody like you a paid position, and get people like you or other people on the board who want to actually do good. Mainly because that's kind of what I went to college for. I went to college to learn how to be a millionaire. The only bad part is I never became one.
Yeah. I went to college to be a radio and TV broadcaster. Here I am on a podcast.
Yeah, I did not even go to school for that. I'm learning this podcast thing on the fly.
Yeah,
I've learned a lot in the past couple of months about how to operate StreamYard and things you can and cannot do on Facebook and YouTube. I've been learning on the fly. All my education is in economics and business management.
Yeah.
And accounting. So a corporation I could run.
Yeah.
But I just never had the money to buy one.
I could say I'll say this. I'm not a genius by any means, but I'll guarantee you I could do a hell of a lot better job running the show up there at Waverly Hills right now than the parts guy that's running the show right now.
Yeah. They probably
even
don't
if
have
I was
the
on the other side of this argument, I could run the other side of this argument a lot better than what he is. Because it's just stupid. I mean, if you knew everything that's going on behind the scenes with them right now, there's some things that I can talk about, some things I can't talk about. There's some things that we know that we're not supposed to know, that, because we've got people on the inside. It's a total disaster up there right now. I saw a YouTube video recently. Some popular YouTubers went up there and did an investigation. Now, I don't know if it was the YouTubers themselves or if it was the folks that are up there at Waverly Hills right now. But I can tell you I've spent a lot of time in Waverly Hills investigating that place. And I am a paranormal investigator. I've traveled all over investigating. Waverly, I'm known for Waverly Hills because that's where I worked for a long time. But I've done a lot of paranormal investigating. But, there is no place where your REM pods and your mel meters and all your equipment is going off constantly. No. I don't care who you are. There is no place where it's constantly happening on cue.
Right.
But I watched a YouTube video recently that was filmed just a few months back with this current bunch that's running the show up there, and that's exactly what was happening. Can you make that light up again? Beep, 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 beep. Thank you. How about this one? Beep, 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 beep. Oh, thank you. Now, I don't know who was sitting there keying a two-way radio. I don't know who was doing it, but I just don't think that's legit. Now,
it's not. You don't. Yeah, I know, and anybody who's watching this program knows, as a paranormal investigator, you're lucky if you get a few in an all-night investigation. You're lucky if you get a few instances like that.
Yeah.
I have been gone on investigations where I have light that light, switch off that light, they switch it off. But
Yeah.
you usually get that just for, if you're lucky, you get a couple of minutes of that, and it's over, and you may not get anything the rest of the night.
Exactly.
The constant, what you're describing, doesn't happen on a legitimate investigation. It does not.
Exactly. And there's no one up there that's on staff right now that's a legitimate paranormal investigator.
And that's wrong. Any paranormal place should have we're not shouldn't call ourselves professionals.
Not professionals.
We shouldn't call
people
ourselves
that have more
experts.
experience than others.
There you go. It should everybody in that not-for-profit organization, from the head of it down to the guides, should be experienced paranormal people.
Yes.
And should know the ins and outs of every piece of paranormal equipment you can think of, and every square foot of every floor of that building.
Yes.
That's your qualifications for being on that board, or to say nothing, will be on the executive committee, the president,
right?
Whatever.
Or let's say you go on a big national podcast with a big famous, I don't know, maybe a former playmate. And she asks a simple question like, how many beds are in there? Don't give the wrong number.
No.
You should say it's a 400-bed facility. You shouldn't throw out a number that's not right.
Right.
If
it's 400 beds, say 400.
Out a particular room on that podcast and make an issue out of that room, and she says, what room number is that? You shouldn't have to run out in the hall and look up on the door and then see that there's not a number on the door and say, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. You shouldn't do that.
You don't have to run outside
together a little bit better than that.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to run outside the room and see what room number you got it on your arm.
I know where I'm at. Yeah. This didn't happen to be
502.
It was Lois's room. And I'm not sure the room number, to be honest. I'd have to, it's been a while. I'd have to look at the room that's 2 doors down from it, because it does still have a room number on it. And then I can tell you what the room number is on it. I believe it's like 252 or something like that. But I'm not sure. I've got the blueprints to the building right here. I could always look at them and I could tell you. Because I do have them right here.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. I know a little bit about the place. Just saying. But
so you should have been the first person on the board.
Well, I would have been happy to be on the board. I would not be happy to be a part of this current situation that's going on right now. Now, when Charlie wins this lawsuit, because as long as he can fight it and get it to a judge, he will win it, because, like I say, they have no merit to their case. So when it goes to a judge, goes to a jury, whatever, if it goes as far as a jury trial, there's no way that he will lose. Anybody that's seen it will agree. Attorneys that have seen it will agree. Everybody that has seen it will agree completely that he will win if he can get this to a judge.
How old is Charlie?
Of us making it that far. What's that?
How old is Charlie? I
believe he's 60. Let's see. He's 62 or 63.
Oh, so he's a little bit younger than I am then.
Yeah.
I'll be 66 in about 3 weeks, by the way.
Well, congratulations. I'm 54, and sometimes I feel 24 and sometimes I feel 84.
I feel more towards 84 most of the time. I was in the emergency room Friday.
Really?
Yeah, I had a nerve. I thought was either a nerve issue or possible heart attack, because I had tingling sensation. Nothing wanted to work on the left side of my body, which sounds like a heart attack.
Yeah.
And come to find out that I had pulled or strained a whole bunch of muscles on my left hand side that tie into one spot on at the buttocks, where all your back muscles meet, hip muscles, leg muscles, all joined up there by ligaments and tendons. And I turns out that I'm suffering from tendonitis in that spot.
Oh man. Well,
so
at least it's not anything more serious than that.
Yes, I got it. I got electrocardiogram, and I'm fine. The ticker is just great. So that I would rather have tendonitis than all of a sudden find out I'm having heart trouble.
Yeah, or thought you were having a stroke or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I sit here. I've got a 4-acre plot here, and I cut about an acre and a half with a push mower.
Denise says I keep Ernie young. She does. She keeps me on my toes anyway. I see her over in the chat there.
I see. Denise says I keep Ernie young.
Yeah.
Okay. This I will not ask her how she does this because this is going out on Facebook Live. So I don't want to hear that description. By the way,
on my toes. I'll just say that.
I think she was very sexy in the T-Rex costume.
That T-Rex costume was. I mean, that just. I tell you what, that night was off the charts.
That was an hilarious video, by the way.
She was so giddy. You could tell how giddy she was.
Yeah.
You know, I was sitting in the other room and I hear her start hollering, "Aren't you gonna come out here and see what I got?" And I'm like, "What?" She said, "You need to video it." I'm like, "What?" So I started the video camera and you saw what happened.
So did everybody else. That was very funny, and my compliments to both of y'all for making that video.
We don't plan. This is every day of our life. I'm serious. I mean, we need a camera crew following us around every day because it's always something.
Yeah. With me, it's a little bit different. The wife just got over it. She had to have 3, 4, and 5 vertebrae in her back fused.
Oh man!
But you don't know me that well. My wife's a former power lifter. We met on a bodybuilding site.
Uh-huh.
And she used to deadlift just short of 400 pounds. Like a bitch too.
Wow. Okay.
And not cheating. She could do that, going by the strict rules as in a judge competition.
Yeah.
And you can't cheat like that.
Yeah. She got me beat.
The doctor said that her back was so full of muscle that he did not have to use screws or put any kind of metal hardware in her back to hold it straight.
Really?
Yes. She had 9 out of 10 people have to have some kind of hardware there to hold the back together because the doctor said it would move around. She had so much muscle, but she said the back's not going to move on her.
It's locked in.
Mm-hmm. And we're 3 weeks after surgery, and she's walking around the house now. Now, it still hurts sometimes when she sits down. She stands up too long. She can't do that yet. But she is walking around the house, not using a walker and not even using a cane most of the time.
That's impressive. Denise says you should see our TikTok.
No filter, ever. Our most interesting thing right now is there is a bear loose in our neighborhood.
Awesome.
It was last seen a couple of days ago, about maybe a half mile from our house. So now when I'm walking outside doing some work like I was today in the yard on the back of the house, I carry my shotgun with me. Because I don't want a hungry bear sneaking up behind me.
You got slugs in there or what? Better not be trying no bird shot on a bear because that just piss them off.
That just pisses them off. I got some shot from many. I do, of course, have bird shot, but I also got shot for medium gain, and I also had the solid shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that will knock a bear down.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty good shot with it. It's 12 gauge too. We're not talking about a small shotgun here.
Right. Yeah.
And it is a pump, so I could shoot fairly rapidly with it.
Yeah. Well,
but
I'd be
that's the
more
excitement
apt
I've got here.
Try to get away than shoot it, because I like bears for one, and unless they're coming after me.
Yeah, but, I wouldn't shoot if it was just. If I just saw it walking around, I'd probably just sit there and watch it and hope it didn't see me.
Right.
Because we have deer, we have turtles, we have 2 of the neighbors with feral cats. Now, if you saw some of my posts the past couple of weeks, we had a pet cat actually die on us.
Did you?
Yes, and I cremated it here on the grounds. Being in the county, I can
Yeah.
It's time to, how country folk are. We take care of our own. Even though I did live. Oh, you've got raccoons, Denise says.
Yeah, I trapped one in the attic the other day.
Wow, that's one thing I don't have. We have had some squirrels here. Just about name your animal. We've had everything but raccoons.
We have deer, coons, foxes, squirrels, rabbits, snakes.
Got any turkeys?
Yeah, we got turkeys. I haven't seen them yet this year, but usually you can hear them. There's a wooded area behind our house back here. Usually you can hear them back in there. All over up at Waverly, which is just, like I say, 3 minutes. I mean, I can see the top of the building right through that window over there. Waverly, there's turkeys all over the place up there.
Wow.
But yeah, Denise says, and I want to pet all of them except the snake. In the neighborhood chat, we have a neighborhood chat here, and someone posted a picture of a black snake that they had seen while they were walking the neighborhood the other day. And Denise saw that, and she said, "We have to move."
Oh, she could not come here, Denise. I'm sure you're listening because you just posted. We have a king snake, which is a constrictor.
Yeah.
And I saw him about 2 weeks ago. Part of his body, I don't know how long he is, but part of his body was hanging out from under our underpinning of the house. He has grown to about that big around now, and which is a relative king snake, probably at least 10, 12 feet long.
Yeah.
He lives under our house.
Nice.
We keep him there.
I bet you don't have mice or rats.
We've had mice in the past, but now he's gotten kind of big, so I think you took care of our mouse problem. Plus, king snakes will eat rattlesnakes, and they will eat our big nemesis down here, copperheads.
Yep. King snakes will eat poisonous snakes.
Yes.
They're not bad to have around. Black snakes aren't bad to have around. That's what I always tell her, because we used to get them in the building at Waverly quite a bit. Black snakes and rat snakes. And Denise is like, first time I see a snake in that building, I'm done. And I'm like, don't worry about them. They're not bad. Rye says, charge him rent. This inflation stuff is tough.
Todd says king snakes are good, and yes, they are. In fact, where he lives where I saw him, was sticking part of his body out from under underpinning, is literally under our bedroom. So I think he's living right there, probably 3 feet under our butts when we're in bed.
Yeah, probably.
I know Denise is going to freak out at that. The thought of having probably a 10 to 12 foot king snake, maybe sleeping 3 feet from your butt when you're sleeping.
Yeah. She says, I saw a snake at Waverly and it didn't end well. There was a black snake crossing the road in front of us. We were in the car. Denise was driving, and a black snake crossed the road in front of us as we were coming up the hill to the building. And she freaked out and damn near ran the car into the building because there was a snake. And all I heard for the next 10 minutes was, "That was a snake. That was a snake. Did you see it? It was huge. That was a snake." And I'm like, yes. our guests saw her freak out about that. Bones is about to yell at you about a break.
Yep, it's about that time, and he's right here. I've also got another little pet somewhere. Oh, yes, right here. Let me move. I've got a. If you ever heard Richard Crow with Chicago Paranormal stuff, he was the man in Chicago for a while. Anybody who is anybody that's investigated Chicago for long worked with Richard Crow.
I have heard the name.
He did tours up there for decades, and I learned quite a bit from him.
Yeah.
And I do have a little friend here. So
Denise is going to tune off. She's going to turn off her phone or whatever she's watching on right now, because she can't even take a little rubber snake.
Well, this is not exactly a little rubber snake. This is a pretty good size rubber snake.
That's a big rubber snake.
Yes. A high quality one, because you see it's still soft and pliable. And I bought this snake in the early 80s.
Yeah.
You can if you can find a snake of this quality, this is probably well over $100 now.
Yeah.
It could be close to a $200 rubber snake. I'm not sure what she posted, but I can't tell what it is. It's kind of small.
I'm sure it's her vomiting or something.
But I keep this here in my studio.
Yeah.
Along with Bones, who is saying when you go to commercial break. Now, you can stay right where you are, and if you got a comment about any of the commercials that I run, now I will be doing them orally. I've only got one short video that I will show, and we're going to go to a show right here. This is up in New Jersey. Now, the thinking is, last time I talked to the owner of the network I'm on, WLFE-DB, and Psychic Cindy, who has a show on this same network, WLFE-DB, we're going to this. They have gone to the New Jersey Para-Unity Expo before, but she thought it was in September, and they have moved it to July 23rd. So if you're in that area, you see the lineup. You have to check with Chip Coffey. He had to not go to if you've heard about him, Ernie, he missed a show. He was hospitalized.
Really?
Some people were talking bad about him because he had to say, I can't come to this event. And he basically made a video from his hospital bed to prove he was in the hospital. So I wished him a full recovery. I've never met him, but I've never heard anything really bad about him either. So I'm hoping he's recovered enough to be here for this Paracon, July 23rd. I'm hoping now he's recovered enough to at least be at home. Yeah. But I'm hoping he's well enough to travel by the time this airs. I mean,
I've met by the time all this airs, folks on there except for Cody and Satori, and for the most part, they're all good people. I'll leave it at that. I've heard some
good things about the Ghost Brothers. They're a bunch of funny guys. It's fun to talk to, because if you remember their show, they had their first episode was from the Allen House in Monticello.
Yeah.
Which is about 30 miles from where I'm sitting. And I've talked to Professor Spencer, who owns the house. He's a good guy and speaks highly of the Ghost Brothers in the several days they were there. I've got my listeners know about several experiences I've done in the Allen House investigating there. It's an interesting place. But so I've heard nothing bad about the Ghost Brothers, and talking quite a while with a guy who practically lived with them for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, Todd Eskew and his wife Leanne hosted them when they came to Old South Pittsburgh Hospital to shoot an episode, or they had an event there or something. I don't know what it was, but Todd and Leanne picked them up at the airport and was basically their host while they were in town. And they said they're great guys.
Dave Schrader, of course, has his own shows now. He's been on TV shows, and he interviewed me about an incident that I had at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Bachelor's Grove. I was standing at the spot where I had the experience, and got to point to exactly what I saw, and what happened to me in the incident from the location.
Yeah.
And cool. So I've got nothing to say about Dave Schrader. In my experience, he treated me with respect. Did not seem overly arrogant like a lot of people get. So I've got nothing against Mr. Schrader.
I like the cast of Ghost Hunters. I like the cast of Destination Fear. I like most of the people on that screen. I've had good experiences with.
So it's a good show for somebody to go to. So if you're in the New Jersey area, go there.
Yep.
Another show is in Houston. This is more of a horror show. It's almost the same time, July 22nd through the 24th. If you're in the Houston area, like horror, I would say go to this. I don't know many of these people, but if you're into horror, I would say go. And now I got to move. Go ahead.
I didn't know. I recognized a couple people on the screen, and my eyes aren't good enough to read the names, or I might have known more of them.
All right, now I got to go to about a 30-second video here from the show that's going to be in Arkansas that I probably will be at next year. I can't be there because of the wife at the back and other issues. But next year, I may well be here. So let me roll this 30-second video.
Hi, I'm Shanna with the Gypsy Soul Holistic Fair, and we're having our annual event in Hot Springs, Arkansas, June 25th and 26th. Doors open from 10 to 5 each day at the Hot Springs Convention Center. We'll have over 60 vendors offering aura photos, palm readings, tea leaf readings, astrology, numerology, Reiki, crystals, jewelry, metaphysical supplies, and so much more. Free lectures with admission, $6 cash or $8 credit card. Come see us in other places too, in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas. All details are on gypsysoulfair.com.
And that's going to be an interesting show. They've been in Mineral Springs. They are in a very haunted hotel in downtown Mineral Springs, Hot Springs.
Is it the Crescent or?
Pardon me?
What hotel is it?
The big haunted one. What's the name? I can't think of the
Crescent?
Name. No, that's in.
There's one in Arkansas too. There's a Crescent in Arkansas as well.
There's a Crescent in Arkansas. It's another part of the state.
Okay.
It's in Eureka.
That's right. You're right. Now that you say that, I remember the town.
So that's a little ways north from here. Hot Springs, you've got a lot of history there. You've had Babe Ruth used it for therapeutic. My old buddy from Chicago that doesn't like me, Al Capone, is well known in Hot Springs. So, yeah. And I think he actually stayed in this whole haunted hotel. And there's a restaurant there who has a statue of him in their hotel, which if I get there, I will be trying to run a little bit of investigating at night in the hotel. And I definitely want going into the restaurant with a psychic and see what we can do in the restaurant.
Yeah.
So I may be doing some of that live from Hot Springs next year. I'm not going. The psychic's going to be there this year with a table. Next year, I may split the table with her and just kind of play off each other at the table. She will be my guest in 2 weeks, so we will be talking more about this. So that's a show I'm also looking forward to. All right, now back to what we were talking about. What are some of the what are some of the things that you do? You've got your own paranormal group, is that correct?
Yeah, Pac-Man Paranormal is basically myself and my wife Denise. Our children have joined us on a few investigations. Occasionally they'll tag along, and they are considered Pac-Man Paranormal as well. But most often when we are doing an investigation, we're out there with Todd and Leanne Eskew of the Black Wolf Paranormal, and Beth Allen, the Wicked Woman. Beth 316, a lot of people know her as the Parathug. She's part of our pack. We've got a group that we formed together that we've been hosting some events here recently for Save Waverly Hills. We call the Wicked Wolf Pack, because you've got the Wicked Woman, the Black Wolf, and Pac-Man Paranormal. So we took Wicked, Wolf, and Pack, put it together, and we've got the Wicked Wolf Pack, and we all usually investigate together. There's 5 of us that are like family that just kind of inseparable. I mean, we take a bullet for one another. And we have, when you get, I don't know what it is. I don't know if you're a believer in this kind of thing, but I truly am. I think that the energy you bring into an investigation has a lot to do with what you're going to get out of it. And the 5 of us have this energy bond between us, and we're all, I don't know, high energy people. And we have had some of the craziest experiences when we're all together, that, people just, they can't believe it. It's like, how do you guys have all these experiences and we don't? We go to the same places you go and we don't have that happen. It's like, well, you get what you give, I think.
I fully agree with everything you just said. Every word of it.
It's I mean, our main thing when we go on an investigation, we're not hunting ghosts. We're not hunting a creature from a horror flick or anything like that.
You see what Denise just posted?
You see what Denise but we're going in there to talk to people and let people talk to us and tell us their stories.
Exactly.
That was my same approach as a guide at Waverly. I wasn't there to tell a story from a script. I was there to tell the story of the people that were there. And therefore, that's part of why, like we were talking about earlier, I think it's important that I was a paranormal investigator as a guide, because I could let them tell me their stories through my equipment, my research, my paranormal investigations. They could tell me their stories, and then I could pass it on to the public. Exactly. Rather than just read from a script like anybody can do at any historic location.
Right. I could get a script and be a tour guide there at Waverly Hills, and I've never been there.
Exactly.
But I'd be reading from a script.
You've got some of these. I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot of locations that are being bought out by these like corporate entities that are hosting paranormal locations now. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're bringing people into these buildings as guides. Yeah, I'll touch on that in just a second, Denise. What Denise just said.
Yeah.
They're bringing people into these locations that have never been guides there before, never investigated the location themselves, really. But they're giving them a script and saying, go be a guide at one of the most haunted locations or well-known locations in the country. Lizzie Borden House, places like that. That's not how you should do it. I mean, as a paranormal person, that's not how we roll. You know what I mean? I mean, Learn from them. Let the spirits tell you their stories, and then relay it to the people that you're giving a tour to.
I
Like
understand
Denise
everything
said,
you're saying. I
there's a
understand it.
guide up at Waverly, at least one that I know of, because I have seen it in his own words where he texted it to another person. He tells people on his tours, don't believe the EVP evidence you've heard, because that can't be proven. Now, what he's referring to basically is, hello, Greg.
Hello, Greg.
I understand completely, Greg. That's an awesome picture, and you have a one-of-a-kind picture there, signed by me personally. You're a lucky man. But
I'd be concerned about where he put that picture. Is it on the ceiling
he
over
keeps
his
it
bed?
close to him all the time. But yeah, like Rice says, no script should ever be needed if you're truly passionate about a place and you learn from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let the building and the spirits that are there tell you what to say on your tour. Don't let the people who've been guides there in the past tell you what to say on your tour. Don't let me, even if you go to Waverly and I happen to be the lead, don't let me tell you what to say on a tour. Let the spirits tell you what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to them. But there's a guide up there now, like I said, that he has told people, don't believe the EVP evidence you've gotten because that can't be proven. We've got documents that say this. Okay. That is referring to Sarah's story, which is what brought Denise and I together, basically. Sarah, the story of room 502. I told you I'd touch on that later. If you wanted me to, I'll go ahead and tell you Sarah's story. Okay.
Go right ahead.
If you've heard anything about Waverly Hills, you've heard the story of a nurse who was found hanging outside of room 502.
Okay.
Now, Tina and Charlie were told by a guy who came up there that used to work there and had a long line of family members who used to work there over the years, that one of his family members had actually helped cut this nurse down, and that the nurse had been having an affair with a married doctor. When they found her, she had blood running down from her midsection, dripping from her toes. She was hanging outside of room 502. He cut her down. This nurse had been having an affair with a married doctor. She'd had an abortion and hung herself. That's the short version. Some versions of the story actually say that the fetus was flushed down the toilet of room 502 and later found out in the 5th floor washout. Okay? Now, that may or may not have some elements of truth to it. Okay? The only thing that we know is through word of mouth passed down for years and legend, basically, is that a nurse was found hanging outside of room 502.
Right.
Now, that story that was told about her having the affair and everything else, it never sat right with me because of what I know about Waverly Hills, about nurses at that time, and about how they were treated at Waverly Hills at that time, and everything else. Nurses back in 1933, when we think this happened, were lucky to bring home $25 a week. Denise makes almost 4 times an hour as a nurse now. She's a travel nurse. But in 1933, they were lucky to bring home $25 a week. They were women in the workforce, okay? In 1933, before, equality became as much of a thing as it is nowadays.
Right.
They were treated as such. And if you went to work at Waverly Hills, you basically lived at Waverly Hills. You were quarantined up there. You could not go out in the community because they were afraid that tuberculosis would get spread if you went out, you went home for the weekend or whatever. Like Denise says, nursing was seen as a low-life job at that time. It was not like it is.
Menial work.
It was. If you, like I say, if you worked there, you had to stay there. So it was basically like sentencing yourself to prison, for lack of a better way of putting it. Because, you left your family, you moved to Waverly Hills, you were there until you found another job. That's just how it was. And even if you quit or got fired, you had to go to like a transitional housing until you could be tested and deemed safe to get off of the hill. Now, the 5th floor at Waverly Hills had 2 wards back in the 30s. One ward housed patients that had tubercular meningitis, which is basically TB of the brain. Like meningitis, the common meningitis that we still face today, it mostly affected young adults and children. Okay, so the people in that ward were mostly young adults and children who were very sick, because the treatment they had for that was electroshock therapy. And so it made them a little crazy.
Yeah.
And, it tore down other aspects of their condition overall. The other ward was for children 12 and under who had stage 5 tuberculosis. They were kept up there on the roof of the building because the 2 main treatments they had were fresh air and sunshine. The roof of the building had the most access to the fresh air and sunshine. They could wheel them out onto the, out under the full sun. The other patient rooms had a balcony they could go out on, but it was enclosed and covered. On one side there was a screen or a wire mesh opening, and the rest, was basically inside the building. But if you were these most precious and sickest of patients, you were kept on the roof. Now, if you're a nurse that takes that sacrifice to give up your day job or give up your life, basically, and go to live at Waverly Hills where you might catch tuberculosis yourself, a lot of them did. A lot of them died from tuberculosis that they contracted from patients there. Working for not a lot of money, getting treated like dirt in a lot of cases. You had to have cared about the people you were treating in order to take that job to begin with. Now, it never made sense to me that someone who did that would hang themselves in plain view of those children and those sick young adults and children on the other end of the building. I mean,
that would affect all the
patients. You look at
patients.
where she was found hanging, that is in plain view of both of those wards.
Wow.
And it just
that
never
wouldn't
made
be
sense
right.
to me that she would do that.
No.
What's that?
No, that wouldn't be right.
No.
But that could affect all the patients, no matter what age, for the rest of their lives, and especially be traumatic to people she paid special attention to, and were looking for. Maybe the only thing they had to look forward to all day was the nurse paying attention to them, serving them food or giving them a bath or whatever.
Taking them out on the roof to play on the swing set or whatever.
That just would be traumatic as hell to people.
Exactly. So, because of that, it was my job as a guide to basically follow the script and tell her story. But it never made sense to me, and I was always curious about it. And one night, I had a group of guys. There were 3 guys from Wisconsin that had come up there, rented the building, just the 3 of them. And I gave them their tour, and I told that story about her having the affair, hanging herself, and all that. And, you know, when I got done with the tour, I went back downstairs. I said, if you guys need me for anything, I'll be down here. Come find me. I'll be glad to help. So a couple hours later, they came down and they said, hey, we're not having any luck. I won't do the bad dad joke, Denise. We're not having any luck. Can you come up and see if maybe you can get anything going for us? Maybe they know you here. I was like, sure, I got a few minutes. I can come up for a little bit anyway. So they were on the 5th floor. I followed them up there. We get up there. They've got all their equipment laid out on the floor under where she was found hanging. And they're asking all these questions like, why did you kill your baby? Who was the doctor you were sleeping with? Did you know his wife? You know, things like that. And, you know, I mean, the longer I listened to it, it was starting to kind of rub me the wrong way. Because I'm thinking, you know, they don't know this girl, this lady. They don't know her. They don't know what happened. They know what I've told them.
Right.
And, you know, finally I said, can I chime in? They said, sure, go ahead. I sat down against the elevator doors, which are right across from there. I said, hey, my name is Ernie. I'm going to be spending a lot of time up here with you. And I want to tell your story. I want to tell it right. I don't believe what happened to you that night is the way that I tell it on the tours. But if you'll help me, I promise you, I will tell your story to each and every person I come in contact with up here. But you got to help. Can you just tell me your name? And I'm telling you, 2 seconds later, a disembodied female voice from over at the doorway to room 504 said, Sarah. And the 4 of us, you know, it was just 4 men in the building, no women around anywhere. We all about jumped out of our skin.
Of course.
Because, like, you know, when you ask a question, you're thinking something might light up, something might be caught on a recorder you can listen to later. You're not expecting to get a disembodied voice that answers you on cue with a name when you ask for a name. But that's what happened. You know, she said clear as a bell, Sarah. And, you know, I said, well, hello, Sarah. Thank you. Like I said, I want to tell your story. If you'll help me, I'll tell it to everyone I come in contact with. Didn't get much more that night. We got a few hits on REM pods and things like that, but it kind of quieted down and was over. But I started going back up there every chance I had and trying to have conversations with Sarah. And I was getting them for years. Not every night. There were nights when I got absolutely nothing. But there were other nights when I'd get 3 or 4 good EVPs. And, you know, you go home and you listen to it and you kind of piece it together. And it starts telling a story over time. You know, once you start getting enough a word here, a phrase there, or a blip on a REM pod when you ask yes or no questions there, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You start piecing together a story. And over the course of about 10 years, I had pieced together a whole other version of what had happened to Sarah. But I couldn't tell it on the tours because it was my own paranormal research that I didn't have any proof of. I didn't have any documentation to back it up, nothing like that. June 20th of 2019, Denise comes up there with a couple of her daughters and several of their friends, and she rents the building for the night. Never met her before in my life. And I give them their tour. We get up to the 5th floor. I tell the story that's basically the scripted story of 502. And I said, but I don't really think that's what happened. If you'd like, I'll tell you what I think happened. I'm not supposed to, but if you want me to, I will. And of course, everybody was like, yes, please, tell me. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. I don't know what spurred me to do it that night, but I did. And Sarah spurred me to do it that night. It's exactly what spurred me to do that. But so I told Sarah's story. And as I'm telling it, I look over and I see that woman that's got the daughters with her just nodding and grinning as I'm telling the story. So anyway, I finished the tour and they go downstairs to start grabbing equipment, getting ready to go up and do their investigation. And I said, hey, I noticed when I was telling Sarah's story that you seemed to be in agreement with what I was saying. And she said, well, I've been coming here since 2009, once, twice, sometimes more than that, every year. And I never believed that story either. And so I've always talked to Sarah, and that's the name I've gotten. And I've gotten the same story from her. I've gotten no baby, murder, different things that I'll tell you when I tell Sarah's story here in just a minute.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, really? And so her and I started talking, and we started spending more time trying to get Sarah's story put together. And she started coming up. She lived in Hendersonville, Tennessee. She'd come up to Louisville. We'd go to the library, Filson Club, whatever we had to do to try to find out anything historically that might tie into what we were getting through paranormal research. And to make a long story short, we wound up getting married. And that's all Sarah's fault. But there's my bad dad joke of the day. It's not the one you were telling me not to tell. I told a different bad dad joke. But anyway, through researching Sarah's story, we wound up married. And we formed Pac-Man Paranormal. We started a podcast that was on Paranormal Warehouse for a long time before Paranormal Warehouse kind of transitioned away from doing the live podcast thing. It was, for a long time, it was the most popular show on there just about every week. And we told Sarah's story several times because, she had brought us together and, she was the reason that Pac-Man Paranormal existed, basically. And we started getting emails and messages from teams from all over the world that had been to Waverly and had gotten Sarah. They'd gotten a lot of the same things that we had told in Sarah's story. And so to make a long story short, over the course of about a little over a decade and with the cooperation of about 30 different paranormal teams, we have a whole different version of Sarah's story that makes a lot more sense. Sarah's story is that she had grown up not too far from here. She had an older sister that she adored. You're right, Denise, it's not. But I'm a good storyteller anyway. She had an older sister that she adored that she wanted to be just like her. But that older sister caught tuberculosis, wound up passing away from tuberculosis at the age of 15. Sarah watched that. She decided she wanted to be a nurse. She wanted to help kids with tuberculosis. She went to work at Waverly Hills when she got the opportunity. She got a nurse, got her nursing license, got trained as a nurse, whatever. Went to work at Waverly Hills. It was a dream come true. There was no better place to work if you were working with people with tuberculosis than Waverly Hills. It was a fairly new state-of-the-art facility at the time. And she loved it. It was heaven to her. I know that because I've asked her several times, why aren't you in heaven? And she says, this is heaven. She was very tiny. She called herself the runt of the family. But she was a little thing. She was 22 years old when she went to work at Waverly. She was there for 3 years. They had put her on the 5th floor working with the children because she was little, very soft-spoken. The kids wouldn't feel so intimidated by her and all this. And because she was still fairly new, she worked the night shift, often alone on the night shift on the 5th floor with those really sick kids. And one night she's alone in room 504 when another staff member came up the steps. She never heard the elevator ding. She never heard the bell. For a long time, I was getting EVPs that said no bell, no bell. And I'm thinking like Nobel Prize or something like that, but the elevator had a bell that would, ding when it got to the 5th floor. And I finally pieced it together. He came up the steps. She never heard that bell ding. That's what she's talking about. It took a lot of, trying to piece things together before I finally got to that. But anyway, he came in the room behind her. He attacked her. She tried to fight back. She didn't want to scream and wake the kids. And she was too little. He was too strong. He got what he wanted. She was a virgin until that night. Somewhere in the process, he hurt my neck. That's an EVP that we've gotten over and over and over. Hurt my neck, hurt my neck. And they lied. Help me. Rape, murder, no baby. Help me, help me. So, I believe that Sarah was raped, murdered, whether she was strangled or her neck was broken, whatever happened. They hung the body to make it look like a suicide. It'd be real easy to go over and just pull the blinds. If she's in room 504, laying there dead, you walk over, you pull the blinds on the windows that go to those other wards on both ends. Carry the body out there. She's very tiny, like I said. Just throw her over your shoulder, tie a bed sheet around her neck, around the light fixture, and bloop, there you go. You've raped a virgin. She's got blood running down her legs, dripping from her toes. Mm-hmm. Oh, she had an abortion. That story makes a lot more sense than the other story. It's all gathered through paranormal research. Can't be proven. It makes
a lot more sense.
But, it's no secret that, sexual predators have been around forever in all walks of life. If you're a sexual predator and you go to work at Waverly Hills back in those days, you're confined to Waverly Hills. Where's your pool of victims going to come from? It's got to come from on that hill because you can't go anywhere else. Who's the perfect victim? That tiny little nurse alone on the night shift with the only witnesses being really sick kids.
Mm-hmm.
This nurse that was found hanging outside of room 502, according to her and paranormal research, was not some adulteress who had an affair with a married man and had an abortion and then committed suicide. No, she was an innocent victim who was raped and murdered. And that's her story. And I promised her that I would tell everyone that story that I got the chance to. Thank you for giving me the chance to keep that promise tonight.
Well, it's my honor hearing it. I appreciate you going over it. And I hope she is also hearing it and appreciates this being put out there, because this show gets around. It's put out as a podcast all over. So a lot of people are going to see it. And I really, really thank you for relaying her story.
Well, it's my duty. I made her a promise, and I'm not going to break that promise. It's important. I mean, like I say, Denise and I both have these tattoos, and that's for Sarah. If you see this shirt, see that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You've got it made looks like a softball team shirt.
Yeah.
That's neat.
We had someone have this made for us and send it to us as a gift, which is Denise and I both have them. They're awesome. On the back, I don't know if you can see the back.
Oh wow, Waverly Hills 502.
Yeah.
That that is neat. That
Yeah.
is that's
Everybody
really
that sees
cool.
it wants one, and I'm like, they cost a lot of money to have them made, and I don't
Yeah,
have a lot
that
of money.
I said, it looks like a softball jersey.
Yeah, it's a baseball jersey. It's a button-up baseball jersey. It's nice.
Wow, those are not
Yeah.
cheap.
Like Denise says, she gave us a name and a job title of who did this tour. And we found that, and this name is not like John Smith, it's a unique name. We went through employee roster from back at that time and found that name with that job.
At the same time,
Yeah. So that person really did have that job at that time. And we
it
found,
it
she gave us that through paranormal research.
it may not prove your research, but
No,
it
but
at
it's a
least makes it
validation.
possible. Mhm.
Yeah. It's a validation that there's an intelligent entity that's communicating with us named Sarah, who was raped and murdered in Waverly Hills.
See, this is what makes you less of a ghost hunter and more of a paranormal investigator, because that's the difference, is investigation. And I'm sure you could tell us how long it took you to get all this story put together. I imagine it's over several years.
It was over a
That's what,
decade.
over a decade. So that's what makes you a paranormal investigator and not just somebody who's a ghost hunter going out with a millimeter or a K2 meter
Waiting for
or
something to light up. Yeah.
ready for something to light up, or asking, what color hat do I have on, and trying to get an EVP.
Right. Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah, like Denise says, it's over 12 years and over 30 teams collaborating to piece together her story. And it's still evolving. I mean, we still get information, every now and then somebody will send us something that they caught. And it's kind of amazing.
Yes.
I mean, Waverly is a place that, like I say, I've spent most of my time in the paranormal has been as an employee of Waverly, or while I was an employee of Waverly, and, still going to other places, whatever. But there's other spirits there that have stories that the same kind of thing is happening, where we're getting other teams that send us information that they get, and then we go back and do the research and validate it. It's like, yes. And yeah, like Denise says, but the WHHS, the people that are in charge of things up there right now, they don't think you should use that evidence on tours when you're talking about the spirits. If you can't document it with something that's, on paper, then it don't exist.
And that's what people want to hear.
We're paranormal investigators. That's why we do what we do. Is to find the things that aren't on paper. And my personal belief, a lot of spirits that are active in these locations, I believe spirits are everywhere myself, but the spirits that are active, that are communicating, that are acting out, that are slamming doors or scratching people or touching people or whatever, communicating through the devices, those spirits are there for a reason. They have a story to tell. And it might be that their story, what's documented as their story, is not their truth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like Sarah's story. There's a nurse listed. There's a death certificate of a nurse who's listed as a suicide at Waverly Hills. And they're attributed, because it's a nurse and it's a suicide and it's Waverly Hills, that name is not Sarah that's on that death certificate. So the people with the WHHS say, well, that's not true. Sarah's not her name because we've got it right here. Well, who says that just because there's a nurse with a death certificate that says suicide, who says that's the nurse that was found hanging outside of room 502? You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of death certificates that are missing from Waverly Hills. A lot of them. A whole lot. And like Denise says, John Mitchell, the story of John Mitchell. If you see the episode of Kindred Spirits that was filmed up there a few years back, Adam and Amy were directed to room 424, where there was a patient by the name of John Mitchell. And, we were having a lot of aggressive activity around that room. And so they researched the room to try to figure out if anyone who was ever in that room had a reason to be angry. They found that there was a man by the name of John Mitchell who was married to his wife, Lucille. They had 7 kids between them. And they had, John had gotten sick, got sent to Waverly. And while he was at Waverly, Lucille got murdered by this guy that she went out with. Okay. So the story that goes out on Kindred Spirits, because they had, like a day to research this, so they just had limited facts to go on. They put 2 and 2 together and said, okay, he's angry because his wife was having an affair, and he, while he's in the hospital, and then he dies without ever getting to see his kids, because when she got murdered, the kids got sent off to foster care. Okay. Well, Denise researched that in depth. Come to find out, John had filed for divorce so that Lucille could move on, because Lucille was having a hard time feeding those 7 kids. And she'd already sent 2 of them to live with grandparents because she couldn't afford to feed them. He had filed for divorce so that she could find her someone else to help her raise those kids. It wasn't like it came out on TV. Well, when Denise found all this information out, she found his children, she found who they had married, where they were buried, what kind of jobs they had done. A lot of them had been military people, things like that. Well, she takes all this documentation up to John's room, 424. She sat on the floor. Yeah, he filed for divorce in January. She went out with this guy in September, and that the first time she went out with him is when she got murdered. But anyway, Denise goes up there to his room, sits down, and reads off all this stuff. She said, John, I found your kids. I found out what really happened with Lucille. And I understand why you're angry, but I want to bring you some peace. And so she starts reading off, the names of the children, who they had married, their children, John's grandchildren's names, things like that. And said, I hope that brought you some peace. She leaves. From that point on, from that night forward, that room was different. We would be standing in front of John's room with a group of guests, and Denise would start telling John's story and Lucille's story, what really happened with them and what really happened with the children and all that, to the guests. And the guests would be looking behind Denise down the hall, and they would see John come out of the room and wave. There's people that caught it on video. Yeah, John became a butt grabber. He became flirtatious. He was a whole different person. He wasn't slamming doors anymore. He wasn't scratching people. He wasn't pulling hair. He was flirtatious and friendly and funny. He made fun of Todd Eskew. Because Todd would tell his story. And when Todd came up, he started working there last year. And, he would tell John's story. We were up there investigating one night, and Todd asked, he said, John, am I doing better telling your story? The answer we got was, it sucks. We went back about, I don't know, a month later. Todd asked the same question. He said, am I getting better at telling your story? And we get a real clear, yeah. Like, yeah. I forget
Is
what
it
he
good
said.
or bad having a ghost as your critic?
Yeah. Yeah. Finally, I think the best he ever did with Ty was, "It's okay." But I mean, he would respond to that question from Ty.
Wow.
But I mean, that's all part of why we feel like it's important for guides at any haunted location to be investigators themselves. And yeah, Denise says John is her boyfriend. Yeah, he flirts with her, he hangs out with her, he protects her. But the spirits have a story that they want to tell. That's why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
If everything was rosy and it was in black and white about how they lived and died and all the rest, well, then they could just go on about their existence peacefully and enjoy it. But if they're slamming doors or scratching people or acting out in any way, screams heard in the night, things like that, like what people were hearing outside of 502 before I started telling Sarah's story, there's a reason. Maybe it's not in black and white. Maybe the written history is not accurate to what really happened to them, or what their real story is, and maybe that's why they're there to begin with.
Yeah, how much written history that we take as not talking about the Bible here, but the written history we take as gospel.
Yeah,
and teach in school. How much of it over the years has been found to be wrong?
Exactly.
We have to rewrite history books every couple of years because of new information coming about. And especially something as minute as you're talking about, this is an evolving story, and it may change again in a year or two.
Exactly. We always told people on the tours that, like Denise says, not every spirit that scratches or pushes is evil. They're just trying to get your attention. They don't have a physical body.
Right.
They can't say, "Hey, listen to me."
Mm-hmm.
They just want to get your attention somehow. And if it takes scratching, if they can manifest the energy to do that or pull your hair or something like that, they're just trying to get your attention. Yes, there are evil spirits out there. In my 20-some years doing this stuff, being around the field, I might have encountered a handful at best of spirits that I might consider to be demonic. I've encountered a bunch of assholes who happen to be spirits. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But, you watch these shows, and if something is, the least bit aggressive, oh, it's a demon or whatever, no, probably not.
Right.
But
just a personal experience I had with we were talking shows with Ghost Adventures. I don't know if you think much of them or not. You did not mention them, but they were at Bachelor's Grove and were given my phone number then when I lived in Chicago to get the latest. And I'm talking about investigation that I was doing ongoing. If they wanted me to just give my opinion or give the latest, information I had gathered to them. And when they said, is it demonic? And they said, no, it's not demonic at all. And they never called.
Right.
Not being demonic, they basically did not want me on the show because the event, what I had found, you've seen Dale Kazmarik's photo of the white lady of Bachelor's Grove sitting on the stone, hadn't you?
Yes.
If you Google it, if you
paranormal photos out there, I think.
If you put in ghost picture, ghost photo in your Google machine, that pops up.
Yeah, it's one of the best and most popular ghost photos that's out there, I think.
Well, through investigation, I found out who it was.
Awesome.
And the reason she's there is because her firstborn child is buried in Bachelor's Grove and still is.
She's visiting her child.
About 15 years ago, 15 years before Dale took that picture, of course, they closed down Bachelor's Grove. No more burials there. They buried the last burial there was, I think, in 84, 86, somewhere on there. I forget the exact date. It was the old caretaker. He wanted it as well to be buried there, even though there hadn't been a burial there in 50 years.
Yeah.
And they cremated him, and they just got a good set of posto diggers with some 6-8 foot handles on them, dug them down as far as they could go to where their hands were actually in the surface of the ground with the posto diggers, put his ashes in a coffee can, buried at the bottom of that hole, and he's basically in an unmarked grave because they didn't want anybody messing with him.
Right.
I know approximately where it is in that cemetery, and I am not telling anybody.
Right.
I don't disclose a piece of information.
No,
The fact that he's there is plain enough information. But Libby May, which is the girl's daughter, was never moved. She was buried there because her parents got married in 1863. They had her in 1860. She died in 1865 at 11 months and 4 days old. So she was born in 1864.
Right.
And like I said, died at 11 months and 4 days. Unknown causes, just a crib death. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
They had started in nearby town. The cemetery was not set for burial until 1869. Having died in 1865, they had nowhere to put her. So they put her in Amelia, the mother. Patrick was her maiden name, in the Patrick plot in Bachelor's Grove. Now, she had 2 other kids that died young. They are buried with their parents in Oak Park, Orland Park, and with their mother and father. But because by the time they died in the early 1870s, that cemetery was open for burial, and they had their plot paid for. They never moved Libby May's body, and when the cemetery was closed off, all the families were notified to come get their families' bodies to move them to disinter them and move them to an active cemetery. There were no living Humphreys or Patricks in the Chicago area. They've moved. The only living family members had moved to Florida and California, and they just did not have the money, did not have the time, did not have the motivation to come and move a cousin or distant relative.
Yeah, distant relative of any kind. Yeah,
and to put in the hall. Then they had no cemetery in the Chicago area, and they just didn't have the money to haul them over to Orland Park and bury them with the rest of her family. So all that was her mother coming in there every day right at dusk, spending time with her firstborn child. And Ghost Adventures did not want me relaying that story because it's not scary.
That's disappointing. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about anybody in the paranormal. Okay, if I was going to, I would have done that when you were doing your ads earlier. But I'm very disappointed in anyone that ignores research and the story behind the hauntings, because the story behind the hauntings is why we all get in this to begin with, or it's why we should get into this to begin with.
Yeah.
If you're not in it for that reason, I think you're in it for the wrong reason. If you're in it to get famous or to go be a demon chaser or whatever, think you're going to be the next Winchester brother or whatever, I think you're in the wrong field. Personally,
fame or fortune is not to be had in this field very often.
No,
if that's what you're in it for, fame and fortune, nope.
No, you're not. I mean, you can get famous, but very few people. Zach Bagans is one of them. Very few people get rich.
Yeah, he lucked out and got a show that's been on for what, a decade and a half now.
Right.
So of course he's got money. He's the main producer of the show now. He's got control. He's making money, and I'm happy for him.
I mean, he's making a lot of money, and more power to him.
Yeah,
I'm not going to begrudge somebody for making a living. But as a paranormal investigator, like I say, it's disappointing to me when people ignore the stories behind the hauntings and seek out the sensationalism and I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I don't know.
one more thing I've done, Bachelor's Grove. And I tell people now. So I want to go there and look at this. I said it's not as haunted as it used to be because they're taking better care of the cemetery. They're now not allowing the vandalism that they had before. They've got cameras up it now, so to stop people coming in there at night and tagging the graves with gang sign, and
Right.
throwing beer all over the place and having sex back there is absolutely crazy.
Right.
And so they stopped most of that and kicking over the headstones. We'd put a 400-pound headstone, stand it back up. Within a week, somebody goes in there and knocks it down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they've stopped most of that. So the reason people were angry is gone. And
Right.
Amelia come in there. She wanted to pick her child up because she did not want her child there at night when the bad stuff came out. The angry spirits would come out. The drunk people, the drunk locals would come in there. She wanted to get her child out, so she came there every evening and picked her up. Well, I was talking to her via, and you know what I'm talking about, just the same way you talked to Sarah and John.
Yeah.
And I talked to them. I said, look, you can go anywhere you want to as a spirit, anywhere.
Yep.
Catch a plane, catch a train. Just she moved herself by opening her portal from where she was buried to Bachelor's Grove.
Right.
So she knew how to open portals and move around. She came into my house through a portal.
Yep.
And I said, you can go
I firmly believe they can go anywhere they want. Sarah has told me that she never got to see Niagara Falls in life, but she visits it all the time. She's seen the pyramid.
What Amelia's doing. That's what Amelia's doing now. She the only person she will come back to Bachelor's Grove and answer now is Dale Casmerick. And it was his group that took a picture of her back in 92, 93. And he will answer her, but he is about the only one who can get in contact with her now. If he calls her name 2 or 3 times, she will eventually answer him there in the cemetery. But he's the only one. Anybody else goes in there, she's not there anymore. I've took a lot of the haunting out of Bachelor's Grove during the daytime, and them taking care of the cemetery has taken a lot of the bad stuff at night out. So the place isn't anywhere near as haunted as it used to be, and will eventually fade from everybody's memory as being an old haunted place that's almost not haunted now.
Right. And if you want to go to a haunted cemetery, go find one that's neglected and forgotten and vandalized, or it's a place where teenagers go to at the end of a dead end road to have sex. Like, there's a place near us called they call it Gates of Hell. It's very famous. It's Casey Cemetery is what it is, actually. Grandview Cemetery or Casey Cemetery. But locally it's known as Gates of Hell. And it's back a 2.5-3 mile long gravel road that dead ends at the cemetery in the middle of nowhere. And it is haunted as heck. There's everything. There's cryptid activity. There's UFO activity. There's all kinds of activity around that place.
There's a lot of energy there, so it's bound to have activity there.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's an awesome place to go. But that's the kind of place you need to go seek out if you're looking for a haunted cemetery.
You're exactly right.
We recently went to Savannah. We took a tour of Bonaventure Cemetery down there.
Oh, you went to Bonaventure in Savannah?
Yeah. And
I went there years ago.
Yeah. And it's a well-maintained, beautiful, beautiful place. And it's still got that vibe to it. But I think because of how it's being cared for now and everything, Shannon Scott tours. Shannon Scott gave us the tour. It's a friend of Denise's. He runs the Bonaventure Cemetery tours down there. It didn't seem creepy, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could feel that there was energy there, but it didn't. I don't know. It was a place that I could probably go and take a nap. You know, I mean, I would just enjoy it. It's a very peaceful, beautiful place. And
But do
you
you know how
go to
cemeteries
places
were?
like, what's
Do
that?
you know how cemeteries were used 100 years ago?
What do you mean?
150 years ago, the major cemeteries in cities like Savannah, uh, Chicago, just about anywhere, there were a few parks set up,
Right.
public parks
Yes.
for people to go, and very few places they could go have a picnic. There's no state parks,
Right.
no county parks, so they would go to the cemetery
Exactly.
and just set a picnic up in front of their relatives, and that's how they spent their Sunday afternoons.
Yep.
And if you go there with that kind of attitude now, you usually end up, as you were describing, a nice, relaxed, peaceful atmosphere with positive energy.
Yep. Exactly.
Because they will reflect what you go in there with. Bachelor's Grove was like that. If you went in there at night and were looking for the legendary Hangman's News, looking for the legendary Demon Dog, looking for the legendary Shadow Figure, looking for the legendary guy with a hook on his hand, which was all fable story.
All
When
urban
I say legends,
for the most part. Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. That's why I say legendary. They're exactly what they were, urban legends. No truth whatsoever to them, no history you can find.
Right.
And some of it based on places that happened, even if it was in the immediate Chicago area, was miles away from that cemetery. Like the mob never buried anybody in the pond. The pond, at its fullest, max capacity was only 6 feet deep. And that's max capacity, which it rarely got to, except after a rain, because it would quickly drain off. And when it drained off, it is kind of kept level. It was only 5 feet deep. You don't hide bodies in 5 feet of water. They're too easy to find.
No. Not when you've got Lake Michigan right there.
Well, you've also got a pub. They call it the Irish Legend. Now is a name for it. It's gone through a lot of owners, a lot of names. But it was a speakeasy owned by, I believe it was Bottles Capone, Al Capone's brother.
Mm-hmm.
And they're less than a mile away from that pub, the Irish Legend, is a rather massive lake. It's a man-made lake, but it's 50, 60 feet deep.
Yeah.
So why would you drive 5 times as far to bury somebody under 5 feet of water?
6 foot of water. Yeah.
When you could drive a mile and a half, and tie a rock around their neck, tie another one around their feet, and they're under 40, 50 feet of water, which there wasn't many people who could dive down in a muddy lake and find anything at 40, 50 feet of water in 1925.
No. Nope. Just didn't happen. They still had those big brass freaking helmets for divers.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was, you got to look at a little common sense, like you were telling me tonight. But by the way, right now I need to flash. We are in OT, by the way.
Yeah,
so we'll end the show whenever you get ready. So let me flash in the fact that we are in overtime. I'm glad my network, WLFE, and the guy who owns it lets me run overtime if I want to. He always said I could run 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes overtime if I want to. But now since I moved the time from 8 o'clock local time, 9 o'clock your time.
All right.
And got it where it ends at midnight my time. There's no show after mine. So he said, if there's no show after yours, do what you want to do. So
all right. Well, I'm gonna have to go.
I had a guest on. You're right.
Because
we'll go as long as you want to go.
I've got a radio show in the morning, or I'd stay on. Denise is out of town, so I mean I could stay on forever. But I do have a radio show in the morning. I got to go down to the studio for that. But I do want to say that I appreciate you letting me come on here. I appreciate you letting me talk about what's going on at Waverly. Tell Sarah's story. Tell a little bit about myself, about Pac-Man Paranormal. Talk about how Denise and I were brought together. But what I'd like for everyone who's watching to try to do is follow Save Waverly Hills on Facebook. Go to the www.Save Waverly Hills website. We've got a lot of fundraising opportunities on there. We've got some merchandise that you'll only find there. That's Waverly Hills merchandise. All the funds that we're raising go directly to help Charlie and Tina win this bogus battle that they're in, and get control of their building back so that we can get the right people in place to run things up there and do it correctly and respectfully, and not make it about money. Make it about telling the story, preserving the building, what it should be. We need all the help we can get with that. Denise put the links over there in the chat. This is Waverly Hills is, the paranormal community. I always say this: the paranormal community is real good about taking care of their own. When someone has, a death in the family, or an illness, or a financial need, or something like that, we've always come together and helped. We've laid differences aside in a lot of cases to do just that. And I've always thought of Waverly Hills as part of the paranormal community, that building itself. Tina and Charlie definitely are. Like I say, Tina is the lady that you recognize as the face of Waverly Hills. She's not allowed in that building now, people. Without Charlie buying that building 20 years ago and doing all the work that he's done with his own blood, sweat, and tears over the past 20 years, that building would be a pile of rubble. And he's not allowed in his building. And they are part of the paranormal family. Tina and Charlie and that building. Their whole family, the Mattingleys, are responsible for that building standing today. Not the Waverly Hills Historical Society, as they would lead you to believe. It's Tina and Charlie Mattingly that have done all the work. Most of that work, actual physical work, was done by Charlie Mattingly himself. One man. I can tell you from personal experience, Charlie would be out there from dawn till dusk and overnight working, doing what needed to be done for that building. And now when they need to put on a show, they'll call some contractors to come in there and put up a door or something. And so they can post it on their Facebook page and say, look what we've done. There's no heart, there's no soul behind it, nothing. But if you've got a heart and you got a soul and you care about the truth and you care about what's right, help us save Waverly Hills from the Waverly Hills Historical Society.
Well, I wish there was something I could do. I hope I've done something tonight to help you out. I really do.
Helping us spread the word goes a long, long way. I mean, we've got about 6,400 members, something like that, in our Facebook group right now. And each time I do one of these podcasts, if it gets out to a decent sized crowd, we gain another 20, 30 members at least, and maybe make 5 or 10 shirt sales on the website, or sell some tickets, some raffle tickets or something along the line. Some of the other fundraisers we have going on. This weekend we have a poker run and bike show up in the parking lot. Charlie's got access to the parking lot. They don't have a lease on the parking lot, so we're doing all we can with the building as a backdrop. And any way you can help us with these fundraising opportunities, that's what we need right now. And all that money, like I say, it's going straight to fight these lawsuits.
Okay. Well,
and once we win those, everything will be back to normal. And I invite everyone to come up and visit us. The spirits will rejoice, I'm sure, once Tina and Charlie are back home.
Oh yeah. Let me give you this invitation. Anytime you're having an event and you've made a poster or picture or just a paragraph stating the info of your event, feel free to post it on my Facebook page.
Okay.
I've got nearly 5,000 friends. I'm almost maxed out. I don't have to go to some kind of celebrity little check mark thing or whatever.
Get you a fan only page.
Yeah, I don't have to do something like that.
Yeah, one of those what is it called? Public figure page.
Public figure pages. I don't have to go to something like that pretty soon because I'm just about maxed in friends. So feel free to post any kind of updates, any kind of event you have on my page. You're more than welcome to do that.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
I want to keep track of what you do. I want to keep track of what happens at Waverly Hills. So anytime you've got a statement you want to make, like if you go to the lawsuit and it comes out, put in there, we're going to court on this date. Wish us luck.
Yeah, because we want to pack that courthouse with supporters if it does go to court.
Exactly.
That'll send a strong message right there.
Yeah, with your supporters, not theirs.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think we'll have any trouble outnumbering.
So I want to know all about this, and I want to have you back on the show. Not immediately, we can wait a little while, but I do want to have you back on the show when you have some updates.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I'm all about it, man. I appreciate it. It's been a good time.
This is we've had a good time on the show tonight. You're a great guy to talk with. Your wife, I can see why you married her. You're a lucky man. She's
real easy to talk to in the chat. She's a bear in the house. I'm telling you. I need to borrow your shotgun.
No.
Yes, I am a lucky man, Denise. Anyway, I'm going to get off here and get some rest before I got to be on the radio in the morning, and I got to talk to her before she has to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So
and you got to be on what, terrestrial radio tomorrow?
Yeah, it's WHAS 840 AM. You can find it on your iHeart Radio app and listen live. 10:35 Eastern time in the morning. Charlie and I, the owner of Waverly, Charlie Mattingly and myself, we're going to be on the Tony and Dwight show. It's for those of you in the Louisville area, you know all about the Tony and Dwight show. If you're not in the Louisville area, I'll tell you this: 840 WHAS is a 50,000 watt blowtorch of an AM station that is the Tony and Dwight show dominates the time slot around this area, and it gets out to a large area. So this is kind of a great opportunity for us to go on and spread the message about what's really happening with Waverly Hills and about some of our fundraising opportunities coming up. So
what were the call
we're looking forward to it. What's that?
What were the call letters again?
It's WHAS
AM on iHeart.
On iHeart.
So if you're not in the area, you can watch them on iHeart. And by the way, this show gets put on iHeart as an audio.
Yes. Yep. I've got the iHeart app. I'll listen to myself and see if I sounded good.
So we're listed on there. Just look up Southern Fried Paranormal, and we're on iHeart also. So glad to be kind of on the same kind of network they're on. And you'll be back on iHeart in the morning.
Yep, I sure will.
And look up Save Waverly Hills.
Yes, so please.
We need to save it and get it back to functioning normally with people who are passionate about it and not trying to just grab every buck they can.
Exactly. That's the plan, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time and money.
I wish you all the luck there is with this endeavor.
Thank
If
you
there's
so
anything,
much.
if there's anything you think I can do, just let me know. You know how to get in hold of me. We message each other. I keep those messenger things. I don't delete them. So all you got to do is just jump on there and say, can I appear on your show again? I got news, or you just want to talk. Hell, if I can't get on the network, we can always just go on either Facebook Live or YouTube
Facebook
Live.
Live or whatever. Yeah, I'm game for whatever. I've done a lot of these podcasts, like I was saying in Messenger the other day. I'd actually lost track of this one, folks. I'll be honest. Didn't have my secretary around when I set this up with Lynn, and she did not. So because she was away at work when we planned this, I didn't have her put it on my schedule, and I had forgotten all about it. And then Lynn sent me a message last night, said, "You looking forward to the podcast tomorrow?" And I was like, "Which one?" Oh shit.
Well, it was no problem.
As soon as I looked back through the messages, I was like, "Oh my god, yes! Oh my god, I'm an idiot." But
that's why I do that on Wednesday, the day before the show.
You're a smart man, especially when if I come back on, which I most likely will. Please, you might want to remind me a couple of times because if she's not around to put it on the schedule, it goes in here and then right out.
Yeah, my wife helps me out too.
Everyone needs to contact her for my appearances. Yeah. There you go. Go through Denise if you want me back on, Lynn.
Well, Denise, send me a friend request, and then I can get in contact with you.
Yeah.
And don't worry. I've been happily married now for over 20 years, and if you see a friendship request from Gail Thomas, that's the wife. If she finds out I'm talking to a female, she usually befriends said female.
I know how that goes. Believe me.
So they would probably get along well. I think we both married pistols. That's what we've done. That's one thing we've got in common.
Gatling guns. What are you talking about? Not pistols. Anyway, I will talk to you again soon, I hope. You take care of yourself. Tell your wife to get healed up and get back to normal.
I will. And thank you for your thoughts. And by the way, our cat that I was so upset about last week, if you saw some of my posts, because I cremated her here on the property, she is now you were saying that the nurse that was heaven to her is
right.
Is her job. The version of the heaven for that cat was here. She had some of her happiest memories here in this house.
So she's still there, isn't she?
Oh yeah, she made an appearance a couple hours before the show. She was up on my computer desk trying to knock over some medicine bottles and not having enough power to actually touch them, but I could see her out of the corner of my eye pawing at them, which is what she liked to do. If I was talking to somebody on the computer just playing a game, she liked to get up there and look at the computer screen and see what I was doing. Just the curiosity of a cat.
Yeah.
And my wife said she ran beside my wife's computer past her feet, and I felt her a couple of times running past her feet to get up her in her computer desk right beside the computer, just looking around. Why are these people sitting in front of these inanimate objects and talking to them, or what are they doing staring at them?
Yeah.
And she would actually watch videos on my computer, whatever video I was watching.
Yeah. My dog, we used to have, I don't know if you've ever seen it on, when we had DirecTV, we actually got Dog TV. It's a channel called Dog TV. And we ordered it for the dog, and he would watch that. I mean, he could be doing anything else, and you turn it on Dog TV, and he'd hear the music and stuff for Dog TV, and he'd be like, whoop, and go in there and lay down in front of the TV and just watch it. It was, it was amazing. But No, we've got a ghost cat here in the house, and we've never had a cat that died. But
Wow.
we've got a ghost cat that runs around this house. We had a friend here, former friend now, but we had a friend here, and he was sitting at the table, and he looked down and he said, "When did y'all get a cat?" And he reached down to pet it. Like, "We don't have a cat." And he said, "There was just a cat right here." I'm like, yeah, we got a ghost cat. We had never told him that, and he saw it. So, yeah. Denise says you guys are already friends. So,
okay, that's good. So she's free to contact me, and I'll just look her up to schedule the next time on the show. And if she wants to appear on the show sometime to keep us both straight for 2 hours, she's more than welcome to do that.
Well, she's a travel nurse and she's out of town a lot, but when I can get her home, I'll see if I can get her on here sometime. Because,
all right,
believe it or not, together we're kind of entertaining. It's a whole lot of her, slandering me, and people seem to like that. So I'll try to get her on sometime. My dog is crying to go outside, so I better let him go pee.
The dog's got to go pee. I had to do that right before the show myself, and kind of need to now. So
You hear it?
Yeah, I heard that. He said out in dog language.
He did. All right. Well, let me get off of here. I will talk to you again soon, brother.
Fantastic.
You take care. I appreciate it. It's been a great time.
I thank you. We'll see you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's going to do it for our show tonight. We're running into overtime. That's okay. I advertise the overtime, and we are go ahead and shut it down tonight. Like I said, we're not too far to overtime, just 27 minutes. Ernie was definitely worth it. Ernie Pack. We will have him back another time because I'm going to keep track of what goes on at Waverly Hills with the lawsuit and the drama going on down there. So I'll be happy to have him on the show another time. And I hope his friends become my friends because Ernie's a special person. He's doing a special research at Waverly Hills, which is a special place. There's a lot of specials right there, but the people who know Ernie and know Waverly Hills better than I do, I don't think they're going to argue with me saying everybody is special there. Ernie, his wife, the location, the spirits, all those are special. And I wish them all the luck in getting Waverly Hills back to where it should be, under the owner's control, and back open. The place is being restored properly and run properly by experienced paranormal investigators like Ernie. All right, that's all we wrote tonight. Next week, I'm not sure of what I'm going to have as a guest. I have not booked anybody for next week. I'll either be doing a recorded show if I can't book anybody at the last minute, or I may bring in somebody. There's a couple of people who have done some investigating the last month or so that I would like to get back in touch with again. So I may have a repeat guest, not a repeat show, but tell us what they were doing 2-3 weeks ago in investigations. Hopefully they've gone through their evidence and can give us what they found. I knew somebody who was at Gettysburg and doing a couple of other investigations. So I may catch up with Greg Koss or somebody like that. So Greg, if you're listening, if you want to be on the show, we can talk next Thursday. So, all right. Good night to everybody. Good luck. And Bones, get us out of here. Take us home.
Thanks for watching our show. Be sure to tune in to next week as once again we journey way down south into Bayou Country for another heaping portion of Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman and Bones. Make sure to like, share, and follow. Y'all come back now. You hear?